Chapter 8. 3 months later. Elena Blackthorne, she still marveled at the name, stood on the balcony of their rebuilt home, watching her sons race through the forest below in their wolf forms. The morning mist clung to the valley floor, creating an ethereal backdrop for the three dark shapes that darted between the trees with increasing confidence and grace. Kai led the charge as usual, his gray coat gleaming silver in the early light. Leo followed at a more measured pace, already showing the strategic thinking that would serve him well as future pack beta. And Zane brought up the rear, his black coat so like his father's that visitors often did double takes. "They're getting faster," Damon said, sliding his arms around her waist from behind. His warmth pressed against her back, solid and reassuring and absolutely right. "They're getting confident," Elena corrected, leaning into his embrace. "There's a difference." Through the mating bond, she felt his amusement and agreement. The triplets had indeed blossomed in the 3 months since Victor's attack. No longer forced to suppress their wolf nature, they'd grown into their dual heritage with the easy adaptability of children who finally understood they were exactly as they should be. Marcus called. Damon murmured against her ear. "The Seattle pack elders will arrive this afternoon for the ceremony preparations." Elena's stomach fluttered with nervous excitement. Tomorrow they would renew their mating vows in front of allied packs from across the Pacific Northwest, a formal recognition of their bond that had been interrupted 5 years ago. It felt like coming full circle, except this time Elena knew exactly what she was choosing and why. "Any word from the Portland pack?" she asked. "Alpha Morrison sends his regrets but his blessing. Border tensions with the California packs are keeping him busy." Damon's voice carried a note of concern that Elena felt echo through their bond. The werewolf world had been in flux since Victor's defeat. His pack had scattered, some joining other alphas, others going rogue. The power vacuum he'd left behind was causing territorial disputes and alliance shifts that kept every pack leader on edge. "We'll handle whatever comes," Elena said with quiet confidence. "Together." "Together," Damon agreed, pressing a kiss to the mating mark on her neck. The simple touch sent warmth spiraling through Elena's body, but it also triggered the morning sickness she'd been fighting for the past week. She pulled away from Damon's embrace and gripped the balcony railing, breathing deeply until the nausea passed. "Elena," Damon's concern flooded through their bond. "Are you all right?" "Fine," she managed, though they both knew she was anything but. "Just tired." Damon moved to stand beside her, his amber eyes studying her face with the intensity of a mate who could feel her every emotion. "You've been tired for a week now. And yesterday you couldn't finish your coffee because the smell made you sick." Elena's heart began to race. She'd been pushing down her suspicions, telling herself it was stress from the upcoming ceremony, residual trauma from the battle, anything except the possibility that was becoming harder and harder to ignore. "Elena," Damon's voice was soft with wonder and growing certainty. "When was your last cycle?" She opened her mouth to deflect, then closed it again. Through their mating bond, lies were impossible anyway. Damon would feel her deception the moment she tried to voice it. 7 weeks, she whispered. Damon went very still. 7 weeks. It could be stress. Or it could be that we're having another child. Damon's hands came up to cup her face, his thumbs stroking over her cheekbones. "Elena, are you pregnant?" The word hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility and hope and terror in equal measure. Elena searched Damon's expression, looking for any sign of reluctance or concern. All she found was love. Pure, overwhelming, absolute love. "I don't know," she admitted. "Maybe. Probably. I've been afraid to take a test." Afraid of what? Of everything changing again. Of having to protect another child from a world that sees werewolf cubs as assets or threats instead of just children who deserve to be loved. Damon pulled her into his arms, and Elena felt his emotional response through their bond. Not fear or worry, but fierce protectiveness and joy so profound it took her breath away. "Our child," he said against her hair, "will be born into a pack that loves them, protected by parents who would burn the world down before letting anyone hurt them. This isn't 5 years ago, Elena. We're not powerless anymore." Elena closed her eyes and let herself feel the truth of his words. She was no longer the terrified 19-year-old who'd fled in the night. She was Elena Blackthorne, alpha female of one of the most powerful packs on the West Coast, mated to a man who would move mountains for his family. Their children, all of them, would grow up knowing they were wanted, loved, and absolutely safe. "A daughter," Elena said suddenly, the knowledge coming from somewhere deep and instinctual. "I think it's a daughter." Damon's answering joy crashed over her in waves. Through the bond, she felt his mental image of a little girl with her green eyes and his stubborn jaw, running with her brothers under the full moon. "The boys will be over the moon," he said, and Elena laughed at the unintended pun. "They don't know yet. Nobody knows yet. Then we'll tell them together. Tonight, after the packed dinner." Elena nodded, then froze as a new thought occurred to her. "Damon, tomorrow's ceremony, should we postpone? If I'm pregnant, there might be additional rituals requirements." "The only requirement," Damon interrupted firmly, "is that you want to be my mate. Everything else is just ceremony." His voice softened. "Do you want to be my mate, officially and publicly and forever?" Elena thought of the woman she'd been 3 months ago. Terrified, isolated, convinced she had to face the world alone to protect her children. Then she thought of the woman she was now, confident in her power, secure in her love, surrounded by pack and family and belonging. "Yes," she said simply. "I want to be your mate forever. Then nothing else matters." Their quiet moment was interrupted by the sound of 3 pairs of feet thundering up the back stairs. The boys burst through the French doors in human form, their hair damp with morning dew and their cheeks flushed with exertion. "Mama! Papa!" Kai launched himself at Elena's legs. "We saw deer. A whole family of them. And rabbits," Leo added, more sedately but with equal enthusiasm. "They weren't scared of us at all." "That's because they know you belong here," Damon said, ruffling Zane's dark hair. "The forest recognizes pack." "Speaking of belonging," Elena said, exchanging a meaningful look with Damon, "we have some news to share with you boys." 3 identical pairs of amber eyes fixed on her with laser focus. Sometimes Elena forgot how perceptive her sons were, how much they picked up on adult undercurrents. "Are we in trouble?" Zane asked with the resignation of a 4-year-old who'd learned that news often meant consequences. "No, sweetheart. It's good news." Elena knelt down so she was at their eye level. "How would you feel about having a baby sister?" The silence that followed was so complete Elena could hear birds singing in the forest below. "A sister?" Kai's voice was barely a whisper. "Like a real sister?" Leo asked. "Not just a pack sister?" "A real sister," Damon confirmed. "Your mama is going to have a baby." What happened next was chaos in the best possible way. All 3 boys started talking at once, their voices overlapping in a cascade of questions and excitement. "When? Will she be able to shift like us? Can we teach her to howl? Will she have mama's eyes or papa's? Can we name her? Is she going to live here forever?" Elena and Damon exchanged amused glances over their sons' heads. "One question at a time," Elena laughed. "The baby won't be born until next spring, and yes, she'll probably be able to shift like you. As for the rest," she shrugged, "we'll figure it out together." "Will she like to run in the forest?" Kai asked seriously. "I'm sure she will," Elena said. "She'll have 3 big brothers to teach her everything they know. And she'll howl at the moon with us," Zane added with confidence. "All pack babies howl at the moon." "Some do," Damon said carefully. "But even if she doesn't, she'll still be perfect and loved." Elena felt a rush of gratitude for her mate's wisdom. He was already teaching their sons that family came in all forms, that love wasn't conditional on meeting expectations. "Papa," Leo said thoughtfully, "will the other packs come to see the baby when she's born?" "Some of them," Damon replied. "Pack births are always celebrated. Your sister will have more aunts and uncles than she'll know what to do with." "Good," Kai said with satisfaction. "She'll never be alone." Elena's throat tightened with emotion. Her sons understood something it had taken her years to learn. That pack wasn't just about blood or obligation, but about choosing to stand together no matter what came. "Speaking of pack," Damon said, "we should get ready for tonight's dinner. And tomorrow." He smiled at Elena. "Tomorrow your mama and I are going to officially become mates in front of everyone. Can we be in the ceremony?" Zane asked hopefully. "We were thinking you boys could be our ring bearers," Elena said, and was rewarded with whoops of excitement. "This is the best day ever," Kai declared, spinning in a circle. "Wait until tomorrow," Leo said pragmatically. "Tomorrow will be even better. And then the baby will come, and that day will be the best," Zane added with 4-year-old logic. Elena looked at her sons, her beautiful, perfect, extraordinary sons, and felt her heart expand with love so fierce it was almost painful. They had been through so much, lost so much time, but they were together now. They were home. That evening, the great hall of the compound was filled with pack members from across the territory. The long tables groaned under the weight of food prepared by dozens of hands, and the air buzzed with conversation and laughter. Children ran between the adults, their shrieks of delight mixing with the deeper voices of their elders. Elena sat at the head table beside Damon, wearing a simple green dress that brought out her eyes and made the mating mark on her neck look like jewelry. She felt beautiful, powerful, utterly content. "A toast," called Marcus from the far end of the room. "To our alpha and his mate, and to the family they're building together." The hall erupted in cheers and raised glasses. Elena felt the love and acceptance of her pack wash over her like warm water, erasing the last lingering fears about her place in this world. "And," Marcus continued with a grin, "to the newest member of the Blackthorn pack, arriving next spring." If possible, the cheers got even louder. Elena laughed and buried her face against Damon's shoulder as pack members shouted congratulations and well wishes. "How did he know?" she asked. "Pack Alpha," Damon said with a shrug. "I tell Marcus everything important. Everything. Everything that affects pack security. Our children's safety is always pack business." Elena felt the truth of that through their bond. Their daughter would never face the world alone the way Elena had. She would be born into love, protection, and belonging. Later, after the formal dinner had dissolved into smaller conversations and the children had been settled in the pack nursery, Elena and Damon walked through the moonlit forest. It was their last night as unmated partners. Tomorrow they would be husband and wife in human terms, true mates in werewolf law. "Any regrets?" Damon asked as they paused in a clearing where wildflowers glowed silver in the moonlight. "Only that we lost 5 years," Elena replied honestly. "But maybe we needed those years to become the people we are now. I'm not the same woman who ran from you. And I'm not the same man who let his sister's lies destroy the most important thing in his life." Damon pulled her close, his hands settling protectively over her still flat stomach. "We're better now. Stronger. Together," Elena agreed. They stood in comfortable silence, listening to the night sounds of their territory. Owls hooting, small creatures rustling through undergrowth, the distant sound of young pack members running patrol. It was peaceful, secure, home in every sense of the word. "Damon," Elena said suddenly, her enhanced hearing picking up something that made her blood run cold. "Do you hear that?" Damon went still, his head tilted as he listened to the night. After a moment he relaxed. Just the wind in the trees. But Elena's wolf was on high alert, every instinct screaming that something was wrong. She scanned the treeline, her eyes searching for movement, for anything out of place. There, a flash of white hair, pale skin, cold blue eyes watching them from the shadows. "Damon," Elena whispered, her hand instinctively moving to protect their unborn child. But when Damon followed her gaze, the figure was gone, melted back into the forest like it had never been there at all. "Elena, what is it?" She stared at the empty trees, wondering if pregnancy hormones were making her paranoid. But her wolf was rarely wrong about threats, and the scent that lingered on the night breeze was familiar in the worst possible way. Cold, female, predatory, and underneath it all, the distinctive musk that marked Victor's bloodline. "Nothing," Elena said finally, not wanting to spoil their perfect evening with paranoid concerns. "Just thought I saw something." But as they walked back toward the compound, Elena's mind raced with possibilities. Victor was dead, she'd killed him herself. But werewolf packs were extended families, and revenge was a tradition that ran deeper than blood. Tomorrow they would be officially mated, surrounded by allies and protection. Their sons were safe, their pack was strong, and their daughter would be born into a world of love and security. But Elena's wolf whispered that their enemies weren't finished with them yet. Some storms, she realized, never truly ended. They just waited for the right moment to return. As they reached the compound, Elena looked back once more at the treeline. Whatever was coming, whatever new threat was watching them from the shadows, they would face it the same way they'd faced everything else. Together. As a pack. As a family. And this time, Elena wouldn't be running. Chapter 9. 6 months later. Elena Blackthorn had never been happier to be wrong about something. The mysterious figure she'd glimpsed in the treeline the night before her mating ceremony had turned out to be nothing more than moonlight playing tricks with her pregnancy-addled senses. 6 months had passed without incident, and their lives had settled into the kind of peaceful routine she'd once believed impossible. The triplets, now 5 and growing more confident by the day, attended Maple Elementary 3 days a week, maintaining friendships in the human world while spending their afternoons learning pack traditions with their father. Elena had thrown herself into running the pack's community outreach programs, using her hard-won understanding of both worlds to build bridges between supernatural and human communities. Damon had expanded his business empire to include werewolf-owned companies across the Pacific Northwest, creating a network of legitimate enterprises that provided jobs and protection for pack members who needed to blend into human society. Their daughter kicked vigorously against Elena's ribs, reminding her that their family would be complete in just 3 months. Everything was perfect, which, Elena reflected as she rubbed her swollen belly, should have been her first warning that disaster was coming. She was reviewing grant applications in her home office when Marcus appeared in her doorway, his expression grim enough to make her heart skip a beat. "Elena, we have a problem." "What kind of problem?" But even as she asked, Elena was already reaching through the mating bond for Damon. His presence in her mind was steady and reassuring. He was safe, in meetings downtown, unaware that their world was about to tilt off its axis again. "Legal kind. There's a woman downstairs who says she's Victor Steele's sister. She's got papers from the King County Superior Court." Elena's blood turned to ice. Victor was dead. She'd killed him herself 6 months ago. But werewolf families were complicated, and vengeance was a tradition that could span generations. "What kind of papers?" "Custody documents." "Elena." Marcus's voice was carefully controlled, but she could smell his distress. "She's claiming legal guardianship of the boys." Elena's world narrowed to a single terrible certainty. Someone was trying to take her children. "Again. Where are Kai, Leo, and Zane?" she asked, her voice deadly calm. "Playing in the den. They don't know she's here yet. Keep it that way. And Marcus? Call Damon. Now." Elena hauled herself out of her chair, pregnancy making her movements awkward, but determination making her dangerous. 6 months ago, she would have panicked, would have started planning another desperate escape. Now, she was an alpha female on her own territory, and anyone threatening her cubs was about to learn why that was a fatal mistake. The woman waiting in Elena's living room was beautiful in the same cold, sharp way Morgan had been. Platinum blonde hair, pale blue eyes, and an expensive suit that screamed money and connections. But where Morgan had been driven by misguided family loyalty, this woman radiated the kind of calculated malice that made Elena's wolf bare her teeth. "Mrs. Blackthorne." The woman rose gracefully, offering a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "I'm Lydia Steele. I believe you knew my late brother, Victor." "I killed your brother," Elena said flatly, settling herself in the chair across from their uninvited guest. "If you're here for revenge, you're going to be disappointed." Lydia's smile widened, and Elena caught a glimpse of the predator underneath the polished exterior. "Oh, I'm not here for revenge. I'm here for my nephews." "You mean my sons?" "Actually, that's a matter of some legal dispute." Lydia opened the briefcase at her feet and withdrew a sheaf of official-looking documents. "You see, my brother legally adopted Kai, Leo, and Zane Martinez 5 years ago, when their desperate mother signed the necessary paperwork in exchange for safe housing." Elena's heart stopped. "That's impossible." "Is it? Think back, Elena. 5 years ago, pregnant and terrified, running from what you believed was an unwanted mating bond. You needed help, needed resources, needed a place to hide. My brother provided that help, didn't he?" Images flashed through Elena's mind. Herself at 19, desperate and alone, signing papers she barely read because she was so focused on getting away from Seattle, from Damon, from everything that terrified her about the werewolf world. "I signed housing agreements," Elena said, but her voice sounded uncertain even to her own ears. "Among other things." Lydia spread the documents across Elena's coffee table like a dealer laying out a winning hand. "Preliminary adoption paperwork. Temporary custody agreements. All perfectly legal, all properly witnessed and notarized." Elena stared at the papers, her enhanced vision picking out her own signature on document after document. Her maiden name, Elena Winters, scrawled across forms that granted Victor Steele temporary custody of any children born to the undersigned during the period of care provided by the benefactor. "These are forgeries," Elena said, but even as the words left her mouth she knew they weren't. The signatures were hers, the paperwork looked authentic, and Victor had always been too smart to leave such an important detail to chance. "Feel free to have them authenticated," Lydia said pleasantly. "I'm confident they'll pass any test your lawyers care to conduct." Victor was nothing if not thorough. "Mama?" A small voice interrupted their standoff. Elena looked up to see Kai hovering in the doorway, his amber eyes wide with confusion and growing fear. "Who's the lady?" Elena's heart clenched. Her son could smell the threat rolling off Lydia, could sense the danger even if he didn't understand it. Behind Kai, she caught glimpses of Leo and Zane peering around the corner, all three boys drawn by the scent of their mother's distress. "Just a visitor, sweetheart," Elena said, forcing her voice to remain calm. "Why don't you boys go play upstairs?" But Kai didn't move. He stared at Lydia with the kind of intensity that made adults uncomfortable, his nostrils flaring slightly as he processed her scent. "She smells wrong," he announced with 4-year-old directness. "Like the scary man who tried to hurt us." Lydia's facade slipped for just a moment, revealing something cold and hungry in her expression. "Hello, Kai. I'm your Aunt Lydia. I've been looking forward to meeting you and your brothers." "You're not our aunt," Kai said firmly. "We don't have aunts anymore." Elena's throat tightened. The boys were still processing Morgan's death, still trying to understand how someone who was supposed to love them could have caused so much pain. "Actually, I am," Lydia said with false sweetness. "Your Uncle Victor was my brother, which makes me family. And family takes care of family. Papa Wolf takes care of us," Zane announced, appearing fully in the doorway with his brothers flanking him. "We don't need anyone else." "Papa Wolf isn't your legal guardian," Lydia replied, her voice taking on a harder edge. "According to these documents, I am." Elena watched her sons process this information, saw the exact moment when fear crept into their young faces. They'd been safe for 6 months, had finally started to believe that the bad times were behind them. Now another stranger was making claims on their lives, threatening to tear their family apart again. "Boys, upstairs." "Now," Elena said with quiet authority. This time they obeyed, but she could hear their whispered conversation as they climbed the steps, fragments of worried questions and confused fears that made her wolf snarl with protective rage. "They're beautiful children," Lydia observed once they were out of sight. "Victor always said they had potential. Such a shame their gifts have been allowed to run wild without proper guidance." "Their gifts are perfectly managed, thank you." "Are they?" "Because from what I understand, there have been some incidents at their school. Broken playground equipment, mysteriously bent metal, other children reporting that the Martinez boys seemed different somehow." Elena's blood ran cold. The boys were still learning to control their strength, still figuring out how to navigate between their human and wolf natures. There had been a few minor incidents, nothing dramatic, nothing that couldn't be explained away, but apparently someone had been watching, taking notes, building a case. "Children have accidents," Elena said carefully. "Supernatural children have supernatural accidents," Lydia corrected. "The kind that might make human authorities question whether they're being raised in an appropriate environment." The threat was clear: cooperate, or Lydia would expose the boys' werewolf nature to human courts that wouldn't understand and wouldn't care about context. "What do you want?" Elena asked bluntly. "The children, obviously. They belong with their pack, their real pack. Victor may be gone, but the steel bloodline continues through me. Kai, Leo, and Zane are the heirs to a legacy of strength and power. Under my guidance, they'll learn to use their gifts properly instead of hiding them like shameful secrets. They're not hiding anything. They're learning balance. They're learning to be ashamed of their nature." Lydia's voice hardened. "Look at Kai. Even now I can smell his suppression. The child is fighting his wolf, just like his mother taught him to. How long before that internal conflict destroys him the way it nearly destroyed you?" Elena's hands instinctively moved to protect her unborn daughter. Lydia was right about Kai. Lately, he'd been reluctant to shift, claiming he didn't feel like running with the pack. Elena had assumed it was a phase, a normal part of growing up. But what if it was something more dangerous? "The courts will never grant you custody," Elena said, though she was no longer certain that was true. "Won't they?" "Unwed mother with a history of mental health issues. Don't forget, I have access to Victor's files, including your hospital records from 5 years ago. Mysterious disappearances, multiple identity changes, associating with known criminals." Lydia's smile was razor-sharp. "On paper, you look like exactly the kind of unstable influence children need to be protected from. I'm married now. The boys have a father, a stable home. A father they've known for less than a year. A man with his own questionable associations and business practices." Lydia leaned forward, her predatory nature fully revealed. "Face it, Elena. You can't win this fight. Not in human courts, not with human laws. Your only choice is to make this easy on the children." Elena felt the baby kick hard against her ribs, as if even her unborn daughter could sense the threat to their family. Through the mating bond, she reached for Damon and found him already on his way home, his fury and determination blazing like a beacon in her mind. "The boys stay with me," Elena said with quiet finality. "Whatever games you think you're playing, whatever trap Victor set 5 years ago, My children are not pawns in your revenge fantasy. We'll see. Lydia gathered her documents and rose gracefully. I'll be filing these papers with the court tomorrow morning. You'll have 72 hours to respond before the preliminary custody hearing. Get out of my house. This won't be your house much longer, Lydia said pleasantly. Enjoy these last few days with the children. Try to make some happy memories. After Lydia left, Elena sat in her living room staring at the legal documents scattered across her coffee table. Each signature, each date, each official seal felt like another bar in the cage Victor had been building around her family for 5 years. The sound of small feet on the stairs made her look up. Kai appeared first, followed by his brothers, all 3 boys looking smaller and more vulnerable than they had since the night they'd fled Elena's old apartment. Mama, Kai said quietly, are we going to have to go away again? Elena's heart broke at the resignation in her son's voice. These children had been through so much, lost so much, and now they were facing the possibility of losing everything again. No, sweetheart, she said firmly, opening her arms to gather all 3 boys close. We're not going anywhere. This is our home, our pack, our family. But the scary lady said. The scary lady said a lot of things that aren't true, Elena interrupted. She can't take you away from us. I won't let her. But even as she made the promise, Elena's mind was racing through possibilities and contingencies. Lydia was smart, prepared, and apparently had been planning this move for months or even years. She had legal documents, court connections, and the financial resources to wage a protracted custody battle. More importantly, she was right about one thing. Human courts wouldn't understand or accept the supernatural elements of their family. If Lydia could prove the boys were werewolves, it would be easy to paint Damon and Elena as unfit parents who were exposing their children to dangerous influences. Mama, Leo said suddenly, I had a bad dream last night. About being taken away from you and Papa Wolf. Me too, Zane added. In my dream we were in a place that smelled like silver and fear. Elena's blood chilled. Prophetic dreams ran in some werewolf bloodlines, and her sons had always been unusually perceptive. What if their nightmares weren't just anxiety about the conversation they'd overheard? Boys, she said carefully, have you been having dreams like this for a while? All 3 nodded solemnly. How long? Since the full moon, Kai whispered. Every night since the full moon. That was 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks of her children suffering through nightmares she hadn't even known about. 3 weeks of prophetic warnings she'd been too busy with her own happiness to notice. Why didn't you tell me? Elena asked. Because you and Papa Wolf were so happy, Leo said with the devastating honesty of a child. We didn't want to make you sad. Elena gathered her sons closer, breathing in their familiar scent and trying to project calm confidence through her emotional chaos. These beautiful, brave, selfless children had been protecting her feelings while wrestling with their own terror. Listen to me, she said firmly. From now on, you tell me about every dream, every worry, every fear. My job is to keep you safe, not the other way around. Do you understand? 3 small heads nodded against her. Good. Now, I need to ask you something important. Elena took a deep breath. Kai, have you been avoiding your wolf lately? Kai's small body went rigid in her arms. Maybe. Why, sweetheart? Because. Kai's voice was barely a whisper. Because in the dreams, the scary people say wolves are dangerous. They say human kids should be protected from wolf kids. They say if anyone finds out what we really are, they'll take us away from you forever. Elena's heart shattered completely. Her son, her brave, sensitive, wonderful son, was suppressing his wolf nature because he thought it would keep their family safe. Oh, baby, she whispered, pressing kisses to his dark hair. Being a wolf doesn't make you dangerous. It makes you special. It makes you exactly who you're supposed to be. But the lady said a lot of things designed to scare us, Elena interrupted. But she's wrong, Kai. About all of it. You are not dangerous. You are not something to be ashamed of. You are perfect exactly as you are. Before Kai could respond, Elena heard the front door slam open and Damon's voice calling her name. His emotional state blazed through their mating bond, fury, protectiveness, and absolute determination to destroy anyone who threatened their family. In here, Elena called back. Damon appeared in the doorway, his amber eyes already shifting toward gold, his alpha power filling the room like a physical presence. Marcus followed close behind, his phone pressed to his ear, and his expression grim. Where is she? Damon asked quietly. Gone. But she left these. Elena gestured to the legal documents. Damon's gaze swept over the papers, and Elena felt his rage spike through their bond. Adoption papers. Signed 5 years ago, when I was desperate and stupid and didn't read the fine print. Papa Wolf, Zane said suddenly. Are you going to fight the scary lady? Damon's expression immediately shifted, the predatory alpha giving way to the gentle father. He knelt beside Elena and their sons, his presence warm and reassuring. I'm going to protect our family, he said simply. All of us. Whatever it takes. Even if she has papers? Leo asked. Especially if she has papers. Damon's voice carried the absolute authority of an alpha who would move mountains for his pack. Some things are more important than paperwork, boys. Love is more important. Family is more important. And no court in the world is going to tear this family apart. Elena wanted to believe him. Through their mating bond, she could feel his absolute conviction, his willingness to do whatever it took to keep their children safe. But as she looked at the legal documents scattered across her coffee table, her own signatures condemning her family to another nightmare, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that this time, love might not be enough. Lydia Steele had spent 5 years preparing for this moment. She had money, connections, legal standing, and most importantly, she had Elena's own desperate mistakes to use as weapons. The real question wasn't whether they could win this fight. The question was what they'd be willing to sacrifice to keep their family together. And Elena was afraid she already knew the answer. Chapter 10. The war room at Blackthorn Industries had never felt more like an actual battlefield. Maps of Victor's old territories covered one wall, while legal documents and investigative reports carpeted every surface. Elena sat at the head of the conference table, her swollen belly a constant reminder that this fight wasn't just about the children they already had, it was about protecting their future daughter as well. The employment records confirm it, Marcus said grimly, sliding another folder across the table to Elena. Every job you applied for in those first 3 months, every apartment rental you inquired about, Victor's people got there first. He systematically cut off every legitimate option until his safe house was your only choice. Elena's hands trembled as she opened the folder. Page after page of documentation showed the web Victor had woven around her 19-year-old self, bribes to landlords, threats to potential employers, carefully orchestrated desperation designed to drive her straight into his trap. He planned this from the beginning, she whispered. While I thought I was escaping, he was hurting me exactly where he wanted me to go. The man was a predator, Damon said, his voice tight with controlled fury. He saw a pregnant werewolf fleeing her pack and recognized an opportunity. But why? Elena looked up from the damning documents. What was the long game? He already had his own pack, his own territory. Why did he need my children? Harrison Webb, the pack's human lawyer, cleared his throat. Elena still wasn't used to including humans in pack business, but Harrison had proven his discretion and skill over the past week of frantic preparation. From what we can piece together, Harrison said, Victor was positioning himself for a major power play. Having the biological children of Damon Blackthorn, especially triplets with such strong bloodlines, would have given him significant leverage in any future territorial disputes. Political hostages, Elena said flatly. Insurance policies, Marcus corrected. Children he could use to keep Damon in line, or trade to other packs for favors and alliances. Elena felt sick. While she'd been struggling to build a life for her sons in the human world, Victor had been planning to use them as pawns in werewolf politics. None of this matters in human court, Harrison said gently. The judge won't care about werewolf territorial disputes or Victor's motivations. All they'll see are legal documents bearing your signature, granting custody to a man who's now conveniently dead and can't contest his sister's claims. What about Morgan's confession? Damon asked. She admitted to orchestrating Elena's flight, to lying about the arranged marriage, to hiring Victor's men to attack Elena. Surely that's relevant. It would be if we could use it. Harrison's expression was pained. But Morgan's confession was given to Werewolf Council representatives, recorded under supernatural law. Human courts don't recognize the jurisdiction or authority of werewolf councils. As far as they're concerned, those records might as well be fiction. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of impossible choices pressing down on her. What would it take to get those records released to human authorities? Elena, Damon's voice carried a warning. You're not seriously considering. What would it take? She repeated, looking directly at Harrison. The lawyer exchanged glances with Damon before answering. The Werewolf Council would have to formally recognize your request and vote to declassify the records. But to do that, You'd have to appear before them and answer questions about your 5-year absence from PAC law. And the penalty for abandoning PAC jurisdiction is? Variable, Harrison said carefully. Could be anything from censure to exile. In extreme cases, he trailed off, unwilling to voice the ultimate punishment. Death, Elena finished quietly. In extreme cases, it could be death. Elena, no. Damon's hand covered hers, his amber eyes blazing with protective fury. I won't let you risk your life for those records. There has to be another way. Is there? Elena looked around the room at the faces of the people trying to help her. Marcus with his loyalty and competence, Harrison with his legal expertise, Damon with his love and power. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like Victor's trap is closing exactly the way he planned, even from beyond the grave. Before anyone could respond, Elena's phone chimed with a text message. The number was unfamiliar, but the message made her blood turn to ice. The boys are such lovely children. Leo especially seems eager to learn about his heritage. What is it? Damon asked, immediately alert to her distress. Elena showed him the message, watching his expression darken with rage. She's been in contact with them. How is that possible? They're supposed to be at school, surrounded by PAC security. Elena was already calling the boy's teacher, her heart hammering against her ribs as the phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Maple Elementary, Mrs. Chun speaking. This is Elena Blackthorne. Are Kai, Leo, and Zane in class right now? Oh, Mrs. Blackthorne, I was just about to call you. Leo had a family emergency. His aunt came to pick him up about an hour ago. She had all the proper paperwork and identification. Elena's world tilted on its axis. What aunt? We don't have any authorized family members on the pickup list. She said she was your sister-in-law, Lydia Steele? She knew all about Leo's preferences, his favorite subjects, even mentioned his recent nightmares. When Leo saw her, he seemed to recognize her, so I assumed. Elena hung up and immediately dialed Leo's cell phone, the basic emergency phone all 3 boys carried. It went straight to voicemail. She has him, Elena said, her voice deadly calm even as panic clawed at her throat. Lydia has Leo. Damon was already on his feet, his alpha power filling the room like a storm front. Marcus, I want every available PAC member searching the city. Harrison, what are our legal options if she's taken him across state lines? Kidnapping charges, but only if we can prove she took him without permission. She had permission, Elena interrupted, sinking into her chair as the full scope of Lydia's plan became clear. She had custody documents. As far as the school knows, she's Leo's legal guardian acting within her rights. Then we find them and bring him home, Damon said grimly. And then what? Elena's voice cracked with desperation. She brings him back for the custody hearing, tells the judge we tried to kidnap him from his legal guardian? We're playing right into her hands, Damon. Every move we make just gives her more ammunition. Her phone chimed again. Another text from Lydia. Don't worry. Leo is safe and having a wonderful time learning about the Steele family legacy. He's such a bright boy, already asking such intelligent questions about why his parents have been lying to him about his heritage. We'll see you at the custody hearing tomorrow. Elena read the message aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. The room fell silent except for the sound of Damon's controlled breathing and Marcus's fingers flying over his phone as he coordinated search efforts. She's been planning this for weeks, Elena realized. Maybe months. Building a relationship with Leo, gaining his trust, making him feel like we're the ones keeping secrets. What kind of secrets? Harrison asked. Elena thought about her sensitive, trusting second-born son. The one who always wanted to please everyone, who hated conflict, who would believe the best of anyone who showed him kindness. That we're not his real parents. That Victor was his father, not Damon. That we stole him from his rightful family. Elena's voice grew stronger with terrible certainty. She's telling him that everything he's known about his life is a lie. Damon's phone rang, interrupting her spiral of fear. He answered on the first ring. Leo. His face immediately brightened with relief, then darkened with concern. Son, where are you? Are you safe? Elena could hear Leo's voice through the speaker, high and confused and achingly young. Papa Wolf? Aunt Lydia says you and Mama have been lying to me. She says my real daddy was Uncle Victor, and you took me away from my real family. Leo, that's not true. Victor was never your father. But she has pictures. Leo's voice was thick with tears. Pictures of me and Kai and Zane when we were babies with Uncle Victor. She says he loved us and wanted to take care of us, but you stole us away. Elena closed her eyes, understanding exactly what Lydia was doing. The photos were probably real. Victor would have documented his investment in the children he planned to use as political pawns. To a 5-year-old boy, those pictures would look like evidence of a loving uncle who'd been denied his rightful place in their lives. "Leo," Elena said, leaning closer to the phone. "Sweetheart, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Victor wasn't your father. He wasn't your family. He was a very bad man who wanted to hurt our family. But Aunt Lydia says you're the bad ones," Leo whispered. "She says you took me and Kai and Zane away from people who loved us. She says that's why you were always so scared, because you knew what you did was wrong." Elena felt her heart breaking. Her son, her sweet, trusting boy, was being systematically poisoned against his own parents by a woman who saw him as nothing more than a weapon. "Where are you right now, Leo?" Damon asked, his voice carefully controlled. "At Aunt Lydia's house. It's really big and pretty, and she has pictures of our family everywhere. She says I can live here and go to a special school where they understand kids like us. Kids like us. Kids who are different, who have special abilities." Leo's voice dropped to a whisper. "She knows about the wolf thing, Papa Wolf. She says it's good to be a wolf, that I don't have to hide anymore." Elena and Damon exchanged horrified glances. Lydia was offering Leo exactly what he'd been craving: acceptance of his nature, freedom from the careful balancing act between human and werewolf worlds. "Leo," Elena said desperately, "come home. Come home and we'll talk about all of this together, as a family." "Aunt Lydia says families don't lie to each other," Leo replied, and Elena could hear the doubt and hurt in his voice. "She says real families tell the truth about important things. We never lied to you. You didn't tell me about Uncle Victor. You didn't tell me I had other family who wanted me." Leo's voice was growing stronger, more convinced. "Aunt Lydia says there are lots of things you didn't tell me. Because we were protecting you." "From what?" "From people who love me." Elena realized she was losing him, that every word she spoke was just confirming Lydia's narrative about secretive, controlling parents who kept their children from their real family. "Leo," she said quietly, "do you remember when we first met Papa Wolf? Do you remember how happy you were to finally have a daddy?" "Yes." "Do you remember how it felt when our family was finally complete?" A pause. "Yes." That feeling, that happiness, that sense of belonging, that was real. That was true. Whatever Aunt Lydia is telling you, whatever pictures she's showing you, that feeling you had when we became a real family. That's the truth, sweetheart. Elena could hear Leo crying softly, and her own tears started falling. Her little boy was confused and scared and being manipulated by a master predator who knew exactly which emotional buttons to push. "I want to come home," Leo whispered finally. "But Aunt Lydia says the judges might not let me. She says tomorrow they're going to decide if I can stay with my real family or if I have to go back to people who don't understand me." "We understand you perfectly," Damon said firmly. "You're our son, Leo. Our blood, our pack, our family. Nothing anyone says in any courtroom can change that. But the papers are lies, just like everything else Lydia has told you." Damon's voice carried his full alpha authority. "Leo, I need you to remember something very important. You came from your mother and me. You were born from our love, created from our bond. No piece of paper can ever change that biological truth." There was a long silence, and then Lydia's voice came through the phone, smooth and poisonously sweet. "I'm sorry, but Leo needs to get some rest now. We have a big day tomorrow." Her tone shifted, becoming colder. "I trust you won't do anything rash before the custody hearing. It would be such a shame if Leo had to testify about his parents' unstable behavior in open court." The line went dead. Elena stared at her silent phone, feeling the crushing weight of Victor's final revenge settling over her family. He'd spent 5 years setting this trap, and now his sister was springing it with surgical precision. "She's right," Elena said quietly. "We can't fight this with force. We can't rescue Leo without playing right into her hands. She's backed us into a corner where our only option is to let the human legal system decide our family's fate." "There has to be another way," Damon insisted. "There is." Elena looked around the room at the faces of the people who'd been fighting for her family. "I have to go before the Werewolf Council. I have to risk everything to get Morgan's confession released." "Elena, no. It's the only way, Damon. The only chance we have of proving Victor's manipulation, of showing the court what really happened 5 years ago." "The council could execute you for abandoning pack law," Harrison said bluntly. "Is saving the custody case worth risking your life?" Elena's hand moved protectively to her swollen belly, feeling their daughter kick against her palm. "My children are worth any risk. All of them. And if you die, If the council decides to make an example of you? Damon's voice was rough with pain. What happens to the boys then? What happens to our daughter? Elena met her mate's amber eyes, letting him feel her absolute certainty through their bond. Then you fight. You use every weapon at your disposal, legal and otherwise. You become the father they need, the alpha they deserve. I need their mother too. And I need them to grow up free. Elena stood, her decision made. I won't let Victor win, even from the grave. I won't let Lydia turn my son against his own family. She looked around the room one more time, memorizing the faces of the people who'd become her pack, her chosen family. Marcus, arrange a meeting with the Werewolf Council. Harrison, prepare for the custody hearing as if I might not be there to testify. Elena, Damon said desperately. No. Elena's voice carried the full authority of an alpha female protecting her cubs. I've spent 5 years running from the consequences of that night. I've let fear dictate my choices, let other people's lies define my truth. Not anymore. She walked to the window overlooking the city where her sons had been born, where her daughter would hopefully grow up safe and free. Victor Steele thought he could use my children as weapons against their own father. His sister thinks she can manipulate them into betraying their own family. Elena's reflection stared back at her from the glass, showing a woman who'd been transformed by love and loss into something unbreakable. They're both about to learn that some prices are too high to pay, and some mothers are too fierce to break. Tomorrow, she would face the Werewolf Council and risk everything. Tonight, she would pray it would be enough to bring her son home. Chapter 11. The ancient stone chamber beneath the Cascade Mountains had witnessed centuries of werewolf justice, and Elena could feel the weight of that history pressing down on her as she stood before the Council of 7 Alphas. Each face carved from different regional territories, each pair of eyes holding the power to grant her salvation or seal her doom. Elena's hands rested protectively over her swollen belly, her daughter kicking restlessly as if sensing the tension that filled the cavern like smoke. Behind her, in the observer's gallery, she could feel Damon's presence through their mating bond, his love, his fear, his desperate wish to stand beside her. But conflict of interest laws prevented him from speaking on her behalf. She was alone before the most powerful werewolf court on the continent. Elena Winters Blackthorn, intoned Council Elder Thorne, her voice echoing off the stone walls. You stand accused of abandoning pack law, fleeing werewolf jurisdiction, and endangering the bloodline through unsanctioned separation from your mate. How do you plead? Elena lifted her chin, drawing on every ounce of strength she'd gained over the past year as Damon's alpha mate. I plead necessity, Your Honor. Every choice I made was to protect my unborn children from those who would have used them as weapons. A murmur rippled through the gallery. Elder Reeves, a silver-haired man from the Northern Territories, leaned forward. Necessity is not a recognized plea in werewolf law, young woman. You either violated pack statutes or you did not. Then I plead guilty, Elena said steadily. And I ask for the council's mercy. Elder Torres from the Desert Pack spoke next, her dark eyes unforgiving. You disappeared for 5 years. 5 years during which your mate suffered, your children were denied their heritage, and the natural order was disrupted. What mercy did you show the bonds you broke? Elena felt the familiar spike of defensive anger, but she forced it down. Losing her temper here would accomplish nothing except confirming the council's worst assumptions about her character. I was 19 years old, she said carefully. Pregnant, terrified, and convinced by someone I trusted that my mate had already chosen another. I made the best decision I could with the information I had. Information provided by Morgan Blackthorn, Elder Kim from the Pacific Coast observed. According to the testimony we've reviewed, she deliberately deceived you about an arranged mating that never existed. Yes. And yet you never attempted to verify this information with your mate directly. Elena's throat tightened. This was the heart of their judgment, not just whether she'd violated pack law, but whether her choices had been reasonable given her circumstances. I tried, she said quietly. The night of our mating ceremony, I went to find Damon to ask him about Morgan's claims. But I collapsed before I could reach him. I woke up 3 days later in a human hospital, and by then... Elena's voice wavered. By then I was convinced he hadn't even noticed I was gone. You spent 3 days in medical care, Elder Brennan from the Mountain Packs noted, consulting his files. Emergency admission for severe stress and dehydration. The attending physician noted signs of physical trauma consistent with assault. Elena's hand flew to her throat, touching the faded scars Victor's men had left. Yes. And during this hospitalization, you were contacted by Victor Steele. He came to see me, said he'd heard about my situation through mutual acquaintances, offered to help me start over somewhere safe. Elder Thorne's expression hardened. Victor Steele was a known predator with a history of exploiting vulnerable werewolves. Did you not research his background before accepting his assistance? I was 19 and scared, Elena repeated, feeling the weight of her past naivety. A strange man offered me what looked like salvation. I didn't ask enough questions. Questions that might have revealed he'd been systematically destroying your other options, Elder Reeves observed. Our investigation has uncovered evidence that Victor's associates interfered with your job applications and housing inquiries, deliberately funneling you toward his safe house. Elena's heart leaped. Then you know I was manipulated. We know you were targeted, Elder Torres corrected. But many young werewolves face manipulation and pressure. Most don't abandon their packs entirely. The criticism stung because it was partially true. Elena had made choices based on fear and incomplete information, but they'd been her choices nonetheless. Members of the council, a new voice interrupted from the gallery. Elena turned to see Harrison Webb rising from his seat, looking desperately out of place among the supernatural beings, but determined nonetheless. You are? Elder Kim asked. Harrison Webb, attorney representing Mrs. Blackthorne in related human legal proceedings. I have evidence that may be relevant to these proceedings. Elder Thorne frowned. Human legal counsel has no standing before this council. But the evidence does, Harrison insisted. Documentation proving Victor Steele's systematic campaign to isolate and control Elena, including financial records of bribes paid to potential employers and landlords. Elena felt a surge of hope as Harrison approached the council table with his briefcase full of Marcus's investigative work. But Elder Brennan shook his head. The question before us is not whether Elena was manipulated, but whether her response to that manipulation was justified under PAC law. Victor Steele's crimes do not absolve her of the choice to flee rather than seek help from proper werewolf authorities. What authorities? Elena asked, her composure finally cracking. Morgan was Damon's sister, his beta, the person he trusted most in the world. If she could lie so convincingly about something so fundamental, who was I supposed to trust? Your mate, Elder Torres said bluntly. The bond between true mates transcends deception. If you had truly believed in your connection to Damon Blackthorne, you would have felt his truth through the mating link. We weren't fully mated yet. Elena's voice echoed off the stone walls. The ceremony was interrupted. The bond was incomplete. I felt his emotions, but I didn't know how to interpret them. And so you ran, Elder Reeves said with devastating simplicity. Elena closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 5 years' worth of guilt and regret pressing down on her shoulders. Yes, I ran, taking with you 3 children who belonged as much to their father as to their mother. I didn't know I was carrying triplets, Elena whispered. I barely knew I was pregnant. When I signed Victor's papers, I thought I was agreeing to temporary housing assistance, not giving him claims on children who didn't even exist yet. But when you did realize your mistake, you chose to remain hidden rather than return and face the consequences of your choices. Elena looked up at the 7 faces staring down at her, seeing judgment and disappointment and, in a few cases, something that might have been sympathy. I was afraid, she admitted. Afraid Victor would use my children against Damon, afraid my own family would reject me for the choices I'd made, afraid I'd caused so much damage that there was no path back to the life I'd lost. Your family, Elder Kim noted, consulting her files. Your parents, Theodore and Margaret Winters. According to our records, they were contacted during the initial search for you. Their response was illuminating. Elena's stomach clenched. She'd spent 5 years trying not to think about her parents' reaction to her disappearance, their final words to her echoing in her memory like a curse. They disowned me, Elena said flatly. When they learned I was pregnant with a werewolf's children, they said I'd brought shame to the family name. They said I was no daughter of theirs. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Even among werewolves, family rejection was considered one of the most devastating betrayals possible. So you had no pack support, no family support, and no way to verify the information you'd been given about your mate's intentions, Elder Brennan summarized. From that perspective, your choices become more understandable. But not excusable, Elder Torres added quickly. Understandable circumstances do not negate the harm caused by abandoning pack law. Before anyone could respond, a commotion erupted in the gallery. Elena turned to see Marcus rushing toward the council table, carrying what looked like a small, worn notebook. Forgive the interruption, he said breathlessly. But I have evidence that directly relates to these proceedings. What kind of evidence? Elder Thorne asked impatiently. Proof that Elena's children always knew the truth about their parentage, despite her attempts to hide it. Marcus opened the notebook carefully. Zane Blackthorne has been keeping a journal since he was 3 years old. With his permission, I'd like to read some entries. Elena's heart stopped. Zane, her quiet, thoughtful son, had been writing about their family situation for years without telling anyone? This is highly irregular, Elder Reeves protested. But potentially relevant, Elder Kim observed. If the children's own words contradict the narrative of deception. Marcus opened the notebook to a page marked with a small bookmark. From Zane's journal, age 3 years, 8 months. Mama cried today when she saw a man who smelled like home. Kai says the man had our eyes. Leo says maybe he's our daddy like the other kids have. I think Mama knows, but it makes her sad. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as Marcus continued reading entries that revealed her son's innocent observations about their unconventional family. Age 4 years, 2 months. Had the wolf dream again. The big black wolf teaches us to be brave. He smells like the man from the restaurant. I think the wolf is our real papa, but Mama can't tell us yet because of the scary people who might take us away. Age 4 years, 11 months. Mama is happier now that Papa Wolf lives with us. She doesn't cry in the shower anymore. Kai says maybe now we can stop pretending we don't know who he is. Leo says we should wait until Mama is ready to tell us the truth. I think the truth is that families are made of love, not just words. Marcus closed the notebook, his voice rough with emotion. There are dozens of entries like these, spanning 2 years. These children never questioned their parentage. They instinctively recognized their father despite Elena's attempts to protect them from what she believed was a dangerous truth. Elena looked up at the council through her tears, seeing their expressions shift as they processed this new evidence. The children's bond with their biological father was never truly severed, Elder Brennan observed. Despite 5 years of separation, despite Elena's well-intentioned deceptions, the family connection remained intact. Which suggests, Elder Kim added thoughtfully, that Elena's primary motivation was indeed protection rather than abandonment. A mother fleeing to protect her children is different from a maid abandoning her bonds out of selfishness. Elena dared to hope that the tide was turning in her favor. But before anyone could speak further, the chamber doors burst open and Lydia Steele strode into the room, her platinum hair gleaming under the ancient lights. Forgive my interruption, Lydia said with false sweetness, but I believe I have information that's crucial to these proceedings. Who are you? Elder Thorne demanded. Lydia Steele, sister of the late Victor Steele, and legal guardian of the children in question. Lydia's smile was razor-sharp. I have a court order granting me temporary custody pending tomorrow's hearing. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. Where is Leo? Safe and happy learning about his true heritage, Lydia replied smoothly. Then she turned to address the council directly. I'm here to inform you that Victor's interest in these children wasn't merely political. It was familial. Explain, Elder Torres commanded. Lydia placed a protective hand over her own belly, and Elena realized with dawning horror what she was about to claim. I'm carrying Victor's child, Lydia announced. His heir, and the biological sibling of Kai, Leo, and Zane. Victor always intended for his children to be raised together as a proper werewolf family unit. That's impossible, Elena gasped. Victor never, he wasn't their father. Wasn't he? Lydia's eyes glittered with malice. Victor was very thorough in his documentation. I have medical records, genetic tests, proof that he was intimately involved in the children's conception. Elena felt the world spinning around her as she realized the full extent of Victor's final revenge. Even from the grave, he was still trying to steal her children, not just through legal manipulation, but by rewriting the very truth of their existence. Those records are forgeries, she said desperately. Victor never touched me. Damon is their father. The bond, the resemblance, everything proves. Proves that werewolf genetics can be surprisingly flexible, Lydia interrupted. Victor was very proud of the children he helped create. It would be a tragedy to separate them from their unborn sibling, don't you think? Elena looked up at the council, seeing doubt creeping into their expressions. If Lydia could convince them that Victor had legitimate claims on the children, that Elena had been fleeing not just pack obligations, but the biological father of her sons. The genetic tests are easy to verify, Elder Reeves said slowly. If Mr. Steele was indeed the biological father. He wasn't, Elena said with absolute certainty. I know who fathered my children. I know the truth of my own body, my own bonds. Then you'll have no objection to independent verification, Lydia said pleasantly. I'm sure the council can arrange for proper testing. Elena felt the trap closing around her once again, saw victory slipping away just when it had seemed within reach. Victor's final move was more devastating than she'd ever imagined. Not just stealing her children's present, but rewriting their past to make his sister's claims legitimate. But as she stood there facing the prospect of losing everything, Elena felt her daughter kick strongly against her ribs, reminding her that she wasn't just fighting for the children she already had. She was fighting for the future of her entire family. And some truths were worth dying for. Chapter 12. The silence in the ancient chamber stretched like a taut wire until a small voice broke through the tension. Excuse me. Every head turned toward the gallery where Kai stood on his chair, his amber eyes blazing with determination that reminded Elena powerfully of his father. Beside him, Zane clutched his journal while Leo was there, having somehow escaped Lydia's custody and made it to the council chambers. Young man, this is not, Elder Torres began. Please, Kai interrupted with 4-year-old directness. We want to talk. About our family. Elena's heart stopped. Boys, you shouldn't be here. We should be everywhere our family is, Leo said firmly, and Elena could see the steel in his spine that no amount of manipulation had been able to break. Aunt Lydia said you were fighting about who gets to keep us. But we already know where we belong. Elder Thorne exchanged glances with her fellow council members. This is highly irregular. So is everything else about this case, Elder Kim observed. Perhaps we should hear what the children have to say. Marcus stepped forward. If I may, the boys specifically requested to address both councils. They understand this affects both werewolf law and human custody proceedings. Elena watched in amazement as her sons walked to the center of the chamber with the kind of quiet dignity that marked natural-born leaders. Zane still clutched his journal. Leo stood protectively close to his brothers, and Kai, brave, sensitive Kai, faced the 7 most powerful werewolves on the continent without flinching. My name is Kai Winters, he began, his voice clear and strong. But I want my name to be Kai Blackthorn, because that's my real family name. I'm Leo Winters, and I want to be Leo Blackthorn too, Leo added. Even though the scary lady tried to tell me different things. I'm Zane Winters, but I've been writing about being Zane Blackthorn for a long time, Zane said quietly, holding up his journal. Because that's who I really am inside. Elder Brennan leaned forward. And why do you want to change your names? Kai answered without hesitation. Because Papa Wolf is our real daddy, and Mama is our real mama, and we want everyone to know we belong together. The scary lady showed me pictures, Leo said, his voice growing stronger. She said the bad man in the pictures loved us. But love doesn't hurt people. Love doesn't make mamas cry. Love doesn't try to take kids away from their families. Love protects, Zane added, opening his journal. I wrote that when I was 4. Real love protects people, even when it's hard, even when it makes you scared. That's what Mama did, she protected us with love. Elena felt tears streaming down her face as her sons spoke with wisdom far beyond their years. The scary lady said our parents kept secrets from us, Leo continued. But parents are supposed to keep kids safe from scary things until they're ready to understand. That's not lying, that's love. And we were ready to understand when Papa Wolf came home, Kai added. We knew right away he was ours. Not because of papers or pictures, but because families recognize each other. Elder Torres's stern expression had softened considerably. And how do you know Damon is your father? All 3 boys answered in unison. Because he smells like home. The simplicity of the statement hit the chamber like a thunderclap. In werewolf society, scent recognition between pack members was considered the most reliable identifier of family bonds. More trustworthy than documents, more definitive than genetics. Plus, Zane added pragmatically, we look exactly like him. Even humans can see that. A ripple of laughter went through the gallery, breaking some of the tension. What about the woman who claims to be your aunt? Elder Reeves asked gently. She says she wants to give you a home with your real family. We already have our real family, Leo said with absolute certainty. Mama and Papa Wolf and our baby sister who's coming soon. And Marcus, who keeps us safe. And the pack, who teaches us things. And even Harrison, who doesn't smell like wolf, but still helps us because that's what family does. Elena watched Harrison Webb wipe his eyes, clearly moved by being included in her son's definition of family. Aunt Lydia smells wrong, Kai said matter-of-factly. She smells like the bad man who tried to hurt us. She smells like lies and anger, and wanting to hurt people who are happy. She tried to make us not trust our real parents, Leo added. That's not what aunts do. Real aunts love you and want you to be happy with your real family. Elder Kim spoke up. And what makes you think this court should listen to children so young? Because it's our lives, Zane said with devastating simplicity. We're the ones who have to live with whatever you decide. And we know what's true better than anyone because we lived it. He opened his journal again. I wrote something yesterday when Leo came back from the scary lady's house. Families aren't made by papers. They're made by people who choose to love each other every day, even when it's hard. Even when scary people try to break them apart. Real families stick together because that's what love does. Elena could hear sniffling from the gallery as Zane's words echoed through the ancient chamber. So please, Kai said, looking directly at the council members, let us stay with our real family. Let us be Blackthorns. Let us grow up with our baby sister and learn to be strong like Papa Wolf and brave like Mama. And let other kids know they can be safe too, Leo added earnestly. Because if you protect our family, maybe other families will be safe from scary people who try to take kids away. Elena felt a surge of pride so fierce it nearly knocked her over. Her sons weren't just fighting for themselves. They were already thinking about protecting other children from what they'd endured. Elder Thorne looked at her fellow council members. I believe we need to deliberate. Actually, a new voice interrupted. I don't think that will be necessary. Everyone turned toward the chamber entrance, where a woman in an expensive suit stood with several official-looking men in dark clothing. FBI agent Sarah Mitchell, the woman announced, showing her credentials. I have warrants for the arrest of Lydia Steele on charges of fraud, kidnapping, and conspiracy. Lydia had gone white as a sheet. This is ridiculous. I have legal custody. Of children you have no biological or legal connection to, Agent Mitchell said crisply. Our investigation into Victor Steele's criminal network has uncovered extensive evidence of document forgery, financial fraud, and child trafficking. The adoption papers you've been waving around were fabricated using stolen government seals. Elena felt the world shift beneath her feet as federal agents moved to surround Lydia. Furthermore, Agent Mitchell continued, our forensic accountants have frozen all assets connected to the Steele criminal enterprise. The financial support you claimed would be available for the children's care doesn't exist. It was all proceeds from illegal activities. This is a werewolf matter, Lydia snarled, her composed mask finally slipping completely. Human authorities have no jurisdiction. They do when the crimes cross state lines and involve federal fraud charges, Elder Thorne said with grim satisfaction. Miss Steele, you've forfeited any protection werewolf law might have offered by involving human courts in supernatural affairs. Agent Mitchell stepped closer to Lydia. You have the right to remain silent. As the Miranda rights echoed through the chamber, Elena felt 5 years of fear and uncertainty finally lifting from her shoulders. Victor's network was crumbling, his sister's claims were exposed as lies, and most importantly, her children were safe. But before she could fully process their victory, a sharp pain lanced through her abdomen. Elena gasped, her hands flying to her belly as her daughter announced her intention to join the family celebration. Elena! Damon was at her side instantly, having leaped the barrier between the gallery and the council floor. I think, Elena panted through another contraction. I think Luna's ready to meet everyone. The ancient chamber erupted into controlled chaos as PAC members mobilized with the efficiency of a well-trained unit. Marcus was already on his phone calling for medical transport, while several female PAC members surrounded Elena with protective instincts. Boys, Elena called to her sons, who were watching the commotion with wide eyes. Is the baby coming? Kai asked with excitement rather than fear. Right now, Leo added. Can we watch? Zane wanted to know. Elena laughed despite the pain. You're going to meet your sister very soon. 8 hours later, Luna Rose Blackthorne made her entrance into the world in the PAC's medical facility, surrounded by more love and protection than any child could ever need. She had Elena's green eyes and Damon's stubborn chin, and when she let out her first cry, it sounded remarkably like a howl. The triplets were fascinated by their tiny sister, taking turns holding her under careful supervision and whispering promises about all the things they would teach her. She's perfect, Kai announced with authority. She smells like us, Leo observed with satisfaction. I'm going to write about her in my journal every day, Zane decided solemnly. As Elena watched her sons bond with their new sister, she felt the last pieces of her broken heart finally healing. This was what she'd been trying to protect all those years ago. not just her children's safety, but their ability to love and be loved without fear. The Werewolf Council's final ruling came 2 weeks later. Elena's actions were deemed protective rather than abandoning, and she was formally welcomed back into supernatural society with full rights and privileges. The boys legally changed their names to Blackthorn in a ceremony attended by allied packs from across the region. Lydia Steele accepted a plea bargain that required her to abandon all claims on the children in exchange for a reduced sentence. Her pregnancy, it turned out, was as fabricated as everything else about her case. Another manipulation designed to strengthen her claims. 1 year later, the birthday party was everything Elena had dreamed of during those lonely years in hiding. Children's laughter echoing through the forest, pack members sharing food and stories, the triplets racing between the trees in both human and wolf form without fear or shame. "Mama, watch," 6-year-old Kai called out as he shifted smoothly from boy to wolf and back again. "I can change fast like Papa Wolf now." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," Elena replied, bouncing baby Luna on her hip as their daughter gurgled happily at her big brother's antics. Leo bounded over in wolf form, shifted back to human, and immediately started explaining to Luna the finer points of transformation. "See, Luna, you just think about being a wolf, and then you are one. When you're bigger, we'll teach you how." Zane approached more sedately, carrying a new journal he'd received for his birthday. "Mama, I want to write about other kids who might need help like we did. Kids whose families get broken up by scary people." Elena's throat tightened with pride. "That's a wonderful idea, Zane. Maybe someday you can help families stay together." "We all can," Kai announced with characteristic determination. "When we grow up, we want to protect kids like us. Right, Leo?" "Right," Leo agreed. Nobody should have to be scared of losing their family. Elena looked across the clearing to where Damon was coordinating games with other pack parents. Her mate caught her gaze and smiled, and the love that passed between them through their bond was strong enough to move mountains. "What are you thinking about?" Damon asked, joining his family with an armload of birthday presents. "How far we've come," Elena replied, leaning into his warmth. "A year ago, I was afraid of everything. Now you run programs that help displaced werewolf families find homes and safety," Damon finished proudly. "Now I run businesses specifically designed to protect supernatural families from people like Victor. Now our sons talk about growing up to help other children instead of just surviving themselves. And now we have Luna," Kai added, reaching up to touch his sister's tiny hand. "And she's never going to be scared like we were, because she has all of us to protect her." As if summoned by her name, Luna let out a sound that was unmistakably a baby's attempt at a howl. The triplets burst into delighted laughter. "She's trying to sing with us," Leo exclaimed. "Should we show her how?" Zane asked. Elena looked around the clearing at the dozens of pack families who'd become their chosen extended family. "I think everyone should show her how." Damon grinned and tilted his head back, letting out a long, pure howl that echoed across the valley. The triplets immediately joined in with their young voices, and then every werewolf at the party added their voice to the song. Elena lifted her face to the full moon hanging overhead and added her own voice to the chorus, feeling the absolute rightness of this moment. Luna gurgled and cooed in her arms, trying to mimic the sounds her family was making. As the last echoes of their pack's song faded into the night, Elena realized she could hear answering calls from the forest around them. Other families, other packs, joining their voices in a harmony that spoke of community, protection, and belonging. "Listen," she whispered to Damon. "The whole territory is singing," he said with wonder. "Everyone's celebrating with us. Because this isn't just our victory," Elena realized. "It's proof that families can survive anything when they have pack support. It's hope for every supernatural family facing threats like we did." Kai tugged on Elena's dress. "Mama, what's that sound?" Elena listened more carefully and heard what her son's sharp ears had detected. The sound of vehicles approaching through the forest. More guests, Damon wondered aloud. But instead of threats or dangers, 3 cars full of werewolf families emerged from the tree line. Parents and children, all carrying dishes and gifts, all drawn by the pack song to join their celebration. "We heard the howling," one of the mothers explained as they approached. "Our children asked if they could come meet the family that fought the scary people and won." Elena watched as more children joined the birthday party, as their parents shared stories of their own struggles with maintaining supernatural family bonds in a hostile world. The gathering grew from a birthday party into something larger, a celebration of survival, resilience, and the power of chosen family. "Look," Damon murmured, pointing to where the triplets were showing the newcomer children how to shift between forms. They're already teaching others. They're building the community they want to live in, Elena said softly. A place where supernatural children don't have to hide, where families don't have to live in fear. As the evening wound down and the extended celebration began to disperse, Elena found herself standing at the edge of their property with Luna sleeping against her shoulder and the triplets playing quietly nearby. No regrets? Damon asked, sliding his arms around his mate and daughter. Elena looked at her sons, confident, secure, ready to take on the world, and felt the baby weight of their newest addition warm against her chest. Around them, the forest hummed with the contentment of a territory at peace. Only that it took us so long to get here, she said honestly. But maybe we needed all those struggles to become the people we are now. The parents our children deserve. The pack leaders our community needs. And maybe, Damon said, pressing a kiss to her temple, our story will help other families find their way home too. Elena smiled, thinking of the program she ran, the families they'd already helped, the network of support they were building for supernatural parents facing impossible choices. Our love story isn't finished, she realized. It's just beginning to include everyone else who needs what we found. Kai appeared at their sides, having crept close while they were talking. Mama, Papa Wolf, are we going to live here forever? As long as you want a sweetheart. Good, Kai said with satisfaction. Because I like our pack. And I want Luna to grow up knowing she's safe. She will, Elena promised, looking out at the forest that had become their sanctuary. All of you will. As they walked back toward the house where pack members were cleaning up the celebration, Elena felt the absolute certainty of belonging that had eluded her for so many years. This was home, not just a place, but a community of people committed to protecting each other's children, honoring each other's bonds, and ensuring that love would always triumph over fear. The last thing Elena saw before they went inside was the forest treeline, no longer hiding threats but sheltering families. Dozens of them, all connected by bonds stronger than blood, all howling the same song of safety and belonging under the endless stars. Their love story was complete, but their legacy was just beginning, and it would protect generations to come. The end. Thank you for listening to this story. Like, share, and subscribe for more.